Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:06. Thanks for tuning in to O'Connor and Company. We're so happy that you choose us. We know you got a lot of options out there, and we do our best to put a lot of thought, effort, and love into our show. Yeah, that's right. I'll say it, love. We love our show. We love what we do, and we love you for letting us be a part of it. Coming up at 7:05, Tim Graham, Media Research Center on, well, what we're about to talk about, MSNBC and NBC News falling apart. 7:35, Jim Hansen, latest out of Ukraine. And 8:35, Jim Jordan of Ohio. He is your law and order man on Capitol Hill. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. I think I just said I love you, Julie.
Good morning.
Love you, bad. All right, let's get to all the tears. There were a lot of tears yesterday. Remember when Joy Reid said that she loved white tears?
Oh, yeah.
Especially white tears of white men if they lose their jobs or if they're upset. Well, there were a lot of Joy Reid tears yesterday, joyful tears. And they weren't tears of joy, but they were joyous tears. How's that?
Yes, there you go. I like that.
And I'm going to warn you, you're about to experience quite a bit of schadenfreude here on O'Connor and Company as we sit back and enjoy Joy Reid taking to one of her crazed selfie videos that she posts on social media, letting her adoring fans know exactly how she feels learning that she lost her job.
My show had value, and that that what I was doing had value. And in the end, I'm sorry, I try not to cry on TV. And this is kind of like me on TV, so I apologize. And that it mattered. I see Karen is there, and she's been texting me as well. And so what I will just say is that in the end, thank you.
A guy brought her a box of tissue.
Yeah, how nice.
Yeah. She is crying quite a bit there. It's funny that she mentioned somebody in her live chat named Karen, because Karen's a word that she uses disparagingly about white women.
That's right.
She calls them Karens. It's almost a slur the way she uses it.
Yep.
And yes, let's remember Joy Reid from just a little while ago.
In America, there's a thing about both white vigilantism and white tears, particularly male white tears. Really white tears in general, because that's what Karens are, right? They Karen out, and then as soon as they get caught, it's like, Green Waterworks.
Yeah, well, Karen out. Did you hear that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, here's her waterworks, Joy Reid's waterworks. And she, again, maintaining that her show had a lot of value. Obviously, the network didn't see the value in it. It was costing more than it was making. That's the definition of value when it comes to a production like Joy Reid was in charge of as a multi-millionaire.
On her show last night, which I know we probably have a cut from, but there were 30 people working on her show.
Mm-hmm.
A 1-hour television show, 30 people.
Yes. Just so you know, we do a 4-hour show here. We do not have 30 people.
No, we do not.
No.
All right.
How many of those 30 people are in charge of her makeup, by the way?
Where I land is that the moment of guilt that I felt, that I went hard on so many issues, whether it was the Black Lives Matter issues of a young baby or a mom or a dad that was killed, or...
By the way, I just want to point out, because there's an inference here, I think, that she's trying to imply, and she wants her viewers to infer, that she was fired because she focused on issues like Black Lives Matter and young black children being killed and all the tough issues.
Yeah.
Let me just be clear, and I want everybody to understand this in case they feel guilty in some way or something. I don't want your white tears to be flowing and make Joy Reid, triggered. That's the thing that kept her on the job this long. It's what got her the job in the first place, and what kept her on the job was that she was focusing on Black Lives Matter. She did not get fired because she focused on those issues. The fact that she focused on those issues kept her there longer than she should have been, frankly. Yep. So she got fired for the same basic reason anyone in the media gets fired. She was not bringing value to the table for her corporate entity.
No.
There were less advertising dollars, and less people in the marketplace demanded that they see her content versus whether the network would suffer if they did no longer offer that content. Period. That's it.
MSNBC, because of white guilt, kept a vile racist on the air for far too long. She was destructive.
It was the most divisive show on television.
It was the most divisive show. It was it was cruel in what it sought to accomplish every night, which was dividing Americans, pitting Americans against one another. And MSNBC should be ashamed of itself for keeping it on that long.
Well said. And by the way, she will continue with her tears of joy here, because she went on to discuss further divisive, horrific content that she provided that transcended race.
When we opened up people's eyes to the fact that Asian Americans were being targeted, and not just Black folks, or went hard for immigrants who've done nothing but come to this country like my parents did and try to make a life and defended them. Or whether we've talked about what the president is doing that is subversive to the Constitution, that is injurious to our liberty, defending books that people find inconvenient, that Nicole Hannah-Jones put into our spirit, that we need to understand 1619 as the real founding of this country, whether it's talking about any of these issues, and yes, whether it's talking about Gaza.
Here we go.
And the fact that we as the American people have a right to object, to little babies being bombed. And where I come down on that is I'm not sorry. I am not sorry that I stood up for those things, because those things are of God.
Wow.
That is quite the speech. Quite the speech.
Those things are of God. So there's Joy Reid. Now she then went on the air last night and gave her final broadcast, and we are going to, well, I guess it's not technically a broadcast because it's on cable, right? I mean, I'm splitting hairs there, but it was her final show, her final presentation, and we'll get into a little bit of that in a moment. But overall, I don't see a whole lot of clamor over Joy Reid losing her job.
Except for Rachel Maddow, who's clearly trying to get fired as well. But these people are so clueless, so tone deaf, and don't understand that things have changed in this country.
Yeah, we'll get to Maddow in a moment, too, but you're right. She basically attacked MSNBC for firing Joy Reid yesterday, and I want to play that for you. But let's get a little bit of Joy Reid on her program yesterday, specifically signing off. This is a fantastic moment, actually, that I want to share with you here. Listen. And she's wearing, by the way, a purple, windbreaker or something, yeah.
Our amazing readers, our audience. I just love running into y'all in the airport, on these streets, and on social media. I could not love or appreciate you more. Thank you for holding us down. Almost 5 years. We are a toddler, and we out in these streets in this world, and we are not going to stop.
We
that
out
is tonight's Read Out. You can follow me on Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, and on Substack at
Follow me on Blue Sky and Threads. Oh, so ignominious, this departure.
Substack.joy, it's at joyandread.substack.com. Also on TikTok and Facebook at Joy Reid Official. Inside with Jen Psaki starts out.
You know what? That's it. That's her sign-off by Joy Reid. You won't have Joy Reid to kick around anymore. The Substack live stream of Joy Reid, Jen Rubin, and Jim Acosta is going to be lit. How great is that going to be? I cannot wait.
I know we're up against it. But,
you are correct.
Over the years, Joy Reid really has gotten crazier looking, and that purple tracksuit, that was a perfect way for her to go out.
Yeah. Jen Psaki, real fast, did pick up right as she handed it off.
I know Joy just ended her show by thanking her team, which is the most authentically Joy thing to do, I can tell you. And they are also a very incredible team. But I want to start this show tonight by thanking her.
Nah, that's all right. It's 6:15.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Rachel Maddow was not crying on the air yesterday, but she did raise the issue of Joy Reid being fired. I can never prove it, but let me just tell you something. I have a hunch. Rachel Maddow either, at the very least, knew about this. There is no way that MSNBC management fired Joy Reid without giving Rachel Maddow a heads up.
I know,
on
it's
this.
so absurd.
There's absolutely no way. If not signed off on it. I've been watching. I have to watch this stuff. And ever since, election season and stuff, because they do shows together on the panel, you look at Rachel Maddow's face. She seems, Joy Reid will go off and do her Joy Reid thing, and Maddow's face is like, Oh, God, do I have to agree with this? Do I have
Maybe. I don't
to,
know.
align
I
myself
think they're
with
just, well, maybe. I mean, I don't know. I think Maddow is just as bad as Joy Reid.
She is bad, like Joy Reid, but she has an image. She has an intellectual, smart girl image. She's went to Oxford, you know. Let me just tell you something about Rachel Maddow. She is a careerist. She got her job. You know, her start was being a guest on Tucker Carlson's MSNBC show.
That is crazy.
Then she was a guest on Keith Olbermann's show. Then she was a regular on Keith Olbermann's show. Then she was the fill-in for Keith Olbermann. Then Keith Olbermann got into a little hot water at MSNBC, and Maddow just swooped right in.
Really?
Oh, heck yeah.
Oh.
And
Do you think she might have been okay with this?
I'm just saying that she is the top dog over there at MSNBC.
Oh, well, yes.
Here she is on the air.
PM hour all the other nights except for Mondays. So that's a big change. And even bigger programming.
By the way, she was just explaining that she's got a new schedule now. She's going to be on every day but Monday or something.
That sounds
I don't
awful.
know. Well, she had only been doing, I think, one day a week, right? And she was just doing
and
a
then
podcast.
they had in
and
her
she was-
contract,
and making
right?
$30 million, by the way. It's
For one day.
Change is at 7 p.m. 7 p.m. Eastern, where Joy Reid's show, The Readout, ended tonight. And Joy is not taking a different job in the network. She is leaving the network altogether. And that is very, very, very hard to take. I am 51 years old. I have been gainfully employed since I was 12. And I have had so many different kinds of jobs, you wouldn't believe me if I told you. But in all of the jobs I have had, in all of the years I have been alive, there is no colleague for whom I have had more affection and more respect than Joy Reid. I love everything about her. I have learned so much from her. I have so much more to learn from her. I do not want to lose her as a colleague here at MSNBC. And personally, I think it is a bad mistake to let her walk out the door. It is not my call, and I understand that, but that's what I think. I will tell you, it is also unnerving to see that on a network where we've got two non-white hosts in primetime, both of our non-white hosts in primetime are losing their shows, as is Katie Fang on the weekend. And that feels worse than bad, no matter who replaces them. That feels indefensible, and I do not defend it.
Yeah, she didn't say racist. She just implied racist.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. But I didn't hear her volunteering to step down so that a person of color could take her place.
No.
Did you?
Mm-mm.
Or suggesting that Lawrence O'Donnell or Chris Hayes step down.
Or maybe that she would, I don't know, give back some of that $30 million so that Joy Reid's 30 staffers could keep their jobs, right, Larry? That would be nice.
But she is right that Katie Fang also lost a job, Asian American host. Also, Jonathan Capehart was sent packing, African American.
Oh, I missed that one.
Yes. Also, though, it keeps getting Ayman Mohiyeldin. I apologize, but honestly, you should get a stage name. Because, well, it's true. There's, some of us.
And Lester
he
Holt.
was also let go. And then Lester Holt, the network anchor for NBC
Wow.
News, announced that he was stepping down, moving to just do. They always move them from the anchor desk to do some, a monthly segment on the magazine show so
Yeah.
they can still make money, along with Nora O'Donnell. So, wow, and all people of color.
Bloodbath.
Absolute carnage at NBC News. Coming up at 7:05, we'll ask Tim Graham of Media Research Center about this. But, boy, you just since Trump won the election, MSNBC absolutely blown up and flipped on its head. But then you got Jim Acosta at CNN gone. Andrea Mitchell, by the way, also NBC. Chuck Todd, also NBC, gone.
Wow.
Nora O'Donnell stepped down from the anchor desk, also doing the aforementioned magazine segments on CBS News. Now Lester Holt stepping down. David Muir's reputation in shambles after his performance in the debate.
And cinching the
raincoat. And cinching the raincoat during the fires. And let's not forget Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation. Absolute.
Right, blaming the Holocaust on free speech.
I mean, it's never been a better time to observe
Hitler,
what's going
the great
on
free speech warrior
in the legacy media, and recognizing that, after 15 years, when Andrew Breitbart first said, you are the media, you have the power, you have the choice, and we need to start moving from this propaganda legacy media that's called mainstream media and start bringing in independent voices and independent options. That was 15 years ago when Andrew Breitbart made those statements, and now here we are, and it's something to behold. 623.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
637, we plow through here on O'Connor and Company, WMAL in Washington, D.C. at 7:05. Tim Graham of Media Research Center will focus on that carnage at NBC News. 7:35, Jim Hansen will give us his take on President Macron in D.C. and what that means to the Ukraine talks. And then at 8:35, Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
We're pretty, I just want to reiterate our position here. We're writ large, we are in favor of the DOGE efforts to find waste, fraud, abuse, and downsize the federal government. Yet at the same time, we empathize for those individuals who are going to be affected by the downsizing of government, because downsizing of government, by definition means people will be out of work if they are federal employees. And at the same time, we want to be a part of the solution for them, because we've been through this before. We went through this with the pandemic. We went through it with economic downturns, where our colleagues, our friends, and yes, our listeners, our radio family, have gone through some tough times. And I remember during the pandemic, we used to do regular programs during the shutdown about highlighting small businesses here in the area and trying to let people know, okay, these guys are still open. If you need something, you can go there. They're even hiring over here. We try to be a solutions-oriented forum here. We feel like that's not only the Christian godlike thing to do, but it's also a service that this radio station provides to this community. And ultimately, that's the whole point of being a radio station, is that we deliver for you. So all that being said, the latest narrative coming from federal workers over the demand that you provide 5 things that you accomplished last week, the outcry over it is still relatively mesmerizing to me, if not perplexing. We spent a half an hour on the show taking your calls from many of you saying, here's why this is a problem, here's why. And honestly, I'm still a little unclear, especially here. Let me give you an example. Here's somebody who did this whole meltdown on CNN, right? Breonna Keeler brings her on to do a whole interview about this. It's like, if you've got time to do this.
Yeah, I was just about to say, in the time that she whined about it, she could have written her 5 things.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, you don't have 5 things.
Well, here's a little bit of that.
First, just tell us about this email and what it was like receiving it and what you all have talked about after getting it.
And actually, I'm sorry, I hate to do this, but it just occurs to me as I hear Breonna Keeler with her, very serious and empathetic voice. All of you federal workers who and again, I can't overemphasize the fact that we do sympathize with your plight, but you got to understand how tone deaf this sounds.
Yeah.
Where, tell us about the moment when you got that email. When you think about the industries that have been devastated over the course of the last decade and a half, oftentimes because of federal government policy. Let me, real fast, you're at the EPA and you just got laid off, or you got this memo and you're very concerned about your job at the EPA. You have to understand how many people the EPA has put out of work. Because of your federal regulations.
Remember coal miners?
Thank you.
They're just supposed to learn to code.
Learn to code. You'll be fine, right? Yeah. You can be a programmer
I'm
now.
sorry, but your job was hurting people, so it's for the greater
right.
good.
We're saving the planet, or the automotive industry for that matter, or various other levels. So you're a federal worker. You participate in federal regulations that put other people out of work. And Breonna Keeler never has them on the air to say, tell us what it was like when you found out.
Well, it's Breonna Keeler.
And this is a woman who has not been fired. She was asked to say what she did last week.
Sure. I got this email Saturday afternoon, about 3 p.m., and I felt absolutely infuriated getting this email with a demand within 48 hours to provide a response on what I did within the last week or face termination. This is clearly an attempt from Elon Musk to harass and bully and intimidate the federal workforce, which is part of his broader plan to gut the federal workforce and privatize public sector services to ensure that corporations like his own can get more profit. And that makes me really angry, and my coworkers as well.
All right.
Can I
yes,
just say,
please do,
Gary,
because I think I've had
that, before this announcement for the 5 bullet points, which again she could have written out in the time she just whined there to Breonna Keller. There were stories coming out of in the time where people were being told they have to go back to work physically. They have to go back to work again. I have a lot of sympathy for people who, because of COVID, have been working at home for a long time.
Agreed.
But there were stories coming out. For instance, this one woman was highlighted as she was a Department of Justice. I think she was a paralegal at the Department of Justice. And in the time she had worked from home because of COVID, she had created this entire sort of fashion side business. It was a small business that she was running during office hours.
Right. While she was collecting her federal benefits.
There were all
and checks.
of these stories about people having these side gigs.
Mm-hmm.
So, I have a lot of sympathy for people who've rearranged their life around childcare. Maybe they're there to take care of their kids after school and they have more flexible hours. But you have a segment of the sort of DC working class that took advantage of a lot of these work from home, and also the fact that they haven't been really seen much oversight or much management. There is nothing wrong with trying to right this wrong and getting things back in order.
Yes.
And asking people to write 5 bullet points or come into work even some days is not the end of the world.
Yeah, and the whining about it is tone deaf. It's not reading well, by the way, with the taxpayers who ultimately are sort of in charge here. And also when you go on television and attack Musk and attack Trump for it, it looks like, well, what it is, which is blaringly political. And so much of your argument and much of the sympathy that you're asking for falls on deaf ears. All right, coming up in a moment, there is some confusion, though, because some departments said, yeah, don't worry about it. Then Trump said, no, you definitely have to return the email. And then Musk revealed what the real point was behind the email and the 5 bullet points. We'll get to all of that in just a moment.
Miss anything? Don't worry, we've got you covered. Get today's breaking news on the Vince Colonnese Show, weekdays 3 to 6, right here on WMAL.
You're talking about the last email that was sent where he wanted to know what you did this week. You know why he wanted that, by the way? I thought it was great because we have people that don't show up to work and nobody even knows if they work for the government. So by asking the question, tell us what you did this week, what he's doing is saying, are you actually working? And then if you don't answer, like you're sort of semi-fired or you're fired.
That's President Trump yesterday while in the Oval Office with President Macron of France, fielding questions, as he does on a regular basis, this time about this email from Elon Musk. And yeah, Musk himself posted on X, the Everything app. He said, the email request was utterly trivial, as the standard for passing the test was to type some words and press send. So many failed even that inane test, urged on in some cases by their managers. Have you ever witnessed such incompetence and contempt for how your taxes are being spent? Makes old Twitter look good. Didn't think that was possible. Old Twitter, of course, referring to when he bought the company for $40+ billion and then fired over half of the workforce.
Yes.
And it seems to be doing just fine.
Better.
But again, the indignance that you hear, like that woman that we heard on CNN, they're saying it was so insulting. It's like that. When you say it's insulting to answer an email that says, tell me 5 things you accomplished last week, you have to understand how insulting that is to taxpayers. Right? You're insulting us because you're taking us for granted when you say that.
I think it's also important to say this is not unusual. I actually work for a nonprofit, and when I'm not on the radio, and I've had to do this at times, both myself and I've had to ask people who work for me to lay out, what did you do this week? What were the main things? It is really a way for a manager to keep track of multiple employees and try to see what are the things, because I don't always keep an accurate checklist of what people are doing. This is not.
By the way,
this isn't that unusual.
Especially when there's new ownership.
Right.
When there's a new CEO that comes in and he's brought in a new management team. And it's like, all right, let's get a handle on this. And especially when that new CEO was brought in by the board of directors, the voters in this case are the board of directors. The new CEO was brought in by the board of directors specifically to cut costs, to reduce the budget, reduce the workforce. So you come in and you say, okay, let's get a handle on who everybody is, what they do, who they answer to. And as Musk just revealed, one of the most important fundamental tests here was just to prove that you're there.
That you're breathing.
Reply, type some words, hit send. That said, there was a lot of confusion, as I just read. So many failed even that inane test, urged on in some cases by their managers. That's correct. Some cabinet secretaries felt sort of undermined by this and submarined. We saw a little bit of jockeying there as you had some cabinet secretaries relay to their entire departments, including state and justice, FBI, saying, yeah, it's okay. You don't have to do this. We'll work this out. And there was some confusion there. They got to, they shouldn't do that. They've got to be clear.
Exactly.
In fact, OPM, under Director of OPM Russ Vogt, or actually the email came from, what does this say? Charles Ezel, Acting Director of U.S. Office of Personnel Management, said the OPM memo is contradictory. It says it isn't voluntary. It says to reply to agency leadership, but the email also says to reply to OPM and CC a manager. But it also, this comes after they had sent out another email or memo saying that it was voluntary. So there's mixed messages going on here.
Yeah, and that is a legitimate concern. That is a legitimate gripe that I agree with. But the people are losing their minds, and the people who are losing their minds seem to forget how employees were treated during COVID.
Right.
That's the other thing that really annoys
Well,
me.
that's, yeah. I think we'll finish with Mary Vogt, friend of the program over at Heritage Foundation, made a really good point because Health and Human Services employees received the email saying they no longer have to comply with the 5-bullet point thing. And Mary Vogt said, if only people were upset when Biden said that he'd fire every federal employee that didn't get the COVID shot.
Right.
That
Right.
Breonna Taylor didn't have that moment. Yeah.
When you didn't comply with that, were you treated as a hero by, CNN?
Right.
No.
Not at all. 6:52.